Hello YouTube, Dave here again. A while back I started a collection video where I showed off the CDs that I have in my collection. The goal behind that was to actually create a whole series of videos where I just kind of show off some of the things that I've collected. So I started with the CDs. I'm going to end with my role-playing stuff, but that's going to be a few videos away. But first today, what I want to do, to get back to this series, because it's long overdue, is go over the DVDs that I have in my collection, DVDs and Blu-rays. Now, I'm the kind of person that likes buying physical media. I enjoy having, DVDs to pull off the shelf, and so what I'm going to do is just going to go over them. I'm not going to show them off like I did with the CDs, just because there's a lot of them. So I'm just going to kind of skim the shelves and talk about a few, and then at the end I just want to show off my actual D&D related DVDs, because I think those are pretty cool if I haven't shown them in previous videos. So we're going to go right down and get on the floor here, which is kind of rough on my knees. But so this is my bottom DVD shelf. Now I have also, as you can see, the empty boxes from all the Planeswalker decks that I've purchased. So let's just move those out of the way. Whoop. And then we'll do some skimming here. So, starting off over here, we've got season, I think, 1 and 2 of the TV show Reboot, which was a show that started, I think, in the late 90s. It was one of the first, if not the first, CG animated show ever. It was pretty awesome. I also have Get Smart, which is a show from my childhood. Weird Science. I don't know how many people are familiar with the TV series, but it ran for, I think, 4 seasons. So this is seasons 1 and 2, and I absolutely love that show. I'm also a big fan of Dragon Ball Z, and I have essentially the 2 seasons that I really wanted the most. Season 3 with the battle with Frieza, and the Cell games. So those are the 2 things that I kind of wanted the most. I also have a collection of the movies here. Then I got some Resident Evil stuff. So I've got the movies. The first one, this one was the second one, which I think came with the first one in there as well. Resident Evil Extinction, Afterlife, and Resident Evil Retribution. I don't have the last one yet. I'm looking to get it at some point. I enjoy these movies, even though they're not necessarily the greatest or most faithful to the series. And then I've got the CG movies, so Resident Evil Degeneration and Damnation, and they are awesome. I mean, Leon's my favorite character, I think, from the Resident Evil series, so can't get enough of that. And then just up top here, just a few others that I have. And then over here, we've got Princess Bride. This here is a thing for Gollum. It's came with the special edition of the 2 Towers, which I got for a pretty cheap price. I ended up giving the DVD away because you'll see why later, but I decided that I wanted to keep that. And then just South Park. This is the most organized that my shelf could be. I used to have a larger shelf, but I had to get rid of it when we moved, so things are a little bit cluttered here, but we've got some Kevin Smith movies, including the Clerks animated series, which is pretty cool. Then we've got the Rambo collection, which was pretty awesome. First Blood was a great movie. Rambo was pretty decent as well. Rambo 3, I guess they called it, not so great, but kind of funny to watch nowadays. And of course the hyper gritty just Rambo, which was pretty intense. Then over here I've got some Cowabunga Classics, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, a huge part of my childhood. So this has, I think, 10 episodes, which is pretty sweet. And then I've got one of my favorite shows growing up as a kid was Dinosaurs, and this show is so interesting to watch now as an adult, because this is back when there was actually family programming and not just kid shows. So the dinosaurs look cool. Whoops, just slide it out here. So the dinosaurs look cool, and it was funny to see what they were doing as a child. But as an adult, there's a lot of political stuff, economic stuff, just a lot of really smart humor that you don't really get from modern shows. Then I've got my South Park DVDs. Starting with season 4, I've got 4, 5, 6, and then I skipped all the way up to 10th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th and 17th. So there are a few ones that I'm missing. I'm not really looking to complete that necessarily, although it would be nice to get season 16 and some of the later ones. I really started getting back into the show after season 4. I stopped with the movie after the movie. I just wasn't really interested anymore, and it took me a couple years to get back into it. So up here, got some Transformers. This is Generation 1, the original animated series, Season 1. The movie and Season 3, Part 2 and 4. I'm missing a lot of them just because they were super expensive. Season 1, Season 2, and Season 3, Part 1. I think Season 2 was in 2 parts as well. But those were like $100 a piece almost, so I didn't get very many of them. I do have the first Transformers Michael Bay movie, which I didn't hate. The ones that came after it, though, not so great. And then just a few Blu-rays up here. I don't know how well they're going to show up on camera, but I've got Jaws, which is, again, one of my all-time favorite movies, Machete, Taken, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and Sucker Punch. So I should explain kind of why I have some of these. I really liked Rise of the Planet of the Apes, but when it comes to some of these DVDs, like Sucker Punch, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Taken, and over here Black Swan, and there's a couple of others, I can't remember which ones they were off the top of my head. I'll see them as I scan the shelf. But Future Shop had a promotion on if you bought 6 Blu-rays, you could get a free Blu-ray player. And they only had 6 titles to choose from, so I picked up those individual ones because those were the ones that, those were the only ones that they had. So, and over here, I've got the Warcraft Blu-ray, which I actually really like this movie. I thought it was pretty good, even though I'm not a huge fan of Warcraft, like I don't know a lot of the lore. This was actually a pretty enjoyable movie, especially for a video game movie. I actually really liked it. Then I have the not the animated, but the TV series Greg the Bunny. This appeared on Fox. This was one of the things that took the spot of Family Guy after it was canceled. And this was a pretty cool show. The premise is that puppets are actually alive and, face discrimination, stuff like that. But it's very crude humor in there as well, which I think is pretty funny. I like that kind of stuff. It's mindless, it's tasteless, but it's something that you can just kind of sit down and laugh at. Then I have the collection of the first 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies. The first one and the second one were staples of my childhood. The third one was kind of rough. And then there's the CG movie that they did a few years ago, which is interesting. But the first one is by far the best. The second one still kind of holds up, even though it's a little campier because they couldn't use their weapons. But that's what I got there. I also have the complete animated series of Dilbert. Love the Dilbert comics. And this show is just awesome. I wish they would have gone longer, but there we go. Now, I'm a gamer. I play Dungeons & Dragons, and I think every tabletop gamer needs to have a copy of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So, have this. I really need to watch this again, actually. It's been a couple years. Then I've got DVD Blast Family Guy games, like a trivia game. Played that a little bit with a friend of mine, and it was fun. It's just a video game, so we'll save that for a future video. And just here I've got my Family Guy collection, so I've got volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. I kind of stopped buying after that. I think there's like 3 or 4 more sets that have come out since. I have the Stewie Griffin movie, which came out right before they revived the show. Partial Terms of Endearment was the banned episode that never aired on TV. You can watch it on Netflix, though. I think it's on there now. And I also have the Family Guy Star Wars trilogy. So I'd actually originally bought the 3 movies individually. Like, I had bought them all when they had come out. In fact, here is my copy, or the case that came with Blue Harvest, which was the first one, back when they didn't realize they were going to do all 3 of them. And this came with like a t-shirt, some collector cards, and the DVD. I gave the DVD away. But I wear the shirt from time to time now. That was kind of sealed for the longest time. But I still kept the case because I think it looks pretty cool. And then, again, probably one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time, The Crow. Absolutely love this movie. Fantastic. For all you wrestling fans out there, this is the movie that Scott Hall used as inspiration when he pitched the idea of Sting, kind of having this darker character and the face paint and stuff like that. So he actually, I think, was one of the ones who recommended that. Then I've got, this one here is facing out or away so you can't see the label because, you know, we do have a child. I think this was given to me by a friend. I'm actually, you know, this is Jackass number 2. It was interesting. I watched these when they first came out, the first and second one, and by the end of the second one I was done with the show, with the series. You know, I haven't seen any of the movies since. But a friend of mine gave me this, so I do still have it, and I like I said, I just kind of keep it faced out so there's no profanity facing out towards our daughter. And then of course, gotta have the Star Wars trilogy. So this is the updated edition, so there's a lot of like the CGI stuff, but it's the original 3 Star Wars movies, which I really enjoy. I do also have over here, which I should move over anyway to put it with that, I do have the original like theatrical version of A New Hope. They released all 3 of these with the unedited versions, or you know, a lot less edited, I guess, but I never really bought the other ones. That was the only one that I really kind of wanted to see. So that's that shelf. So we'll move up to the next shelf here. So I've got seasons 1 and 2 of Game of Thrones. I got these at Walmart on Black Friday during their Black Friday sales. They were like $18, I think. They only had seasons 1 and 2. Tried watching it with my fiance. She doesn't really like the show. She's not comfortable with like the nudity and the sexuality and stuff like that, which is fine. I haven't gotten back into it yet. So season 2, you can see, is actually still sealed. And then I've got a music DVD, so this is Nightwish. This is the End of an Era concert that came when the first singer ended up leaving the band, so that was her final concert. Comes with the DVD of the concert as well as 2 CDs covering all the songs. Then we have the Thomas Jane Punisher, which I think is kind of an underappreciated movie. I liked it, I thought it was really entertaining. Halo Legends, which was a collection of animated films. Similar to the Animatrix, so it kind of follows the, fleshes out the world, the story behind Halo, except for the one comedy one, or the, whatever you want to call it, parody of Spartan 1337, which was just over the top and ridiculous. I also have the Mortal Kombat Blu-ray collection. So this has Mortal Kombat, which I wanted to get, Mortal Kombat Legacy, which I wanted to get, and Mortal Kombat Annihilation, which is awful. So here I've got the Dark Knight. This is the Dark Knight Rises. This was a special edition that came out, or an exclusive version that came out at Walmart. It had the Dark Knight as well as a Batman figure, which I gave to my nephew, but I kept the box because it actually fits all 3 of the movies, so it keeps them all together. The first 2 I have in Steelbook. They were selling them, the Blu-rays for Steelbook, for like $10 right around the time that this came out, so I ended up picking both of those up. Now, let me just get in a little closer here. Move these out of the way. Alright, so here I have some more music-themed, DVDs. I have the movie This is Spinal Tap, which if you haven't watched that, this is hilarious, absolutely awesome. And then I've got Cradle of Filth DVDs, so these were like live concerts. The first one's here. Peace Through Superior Firepower and Heavy Left-Handed and Candid. And then we've got Pandemon Aeon. And this has the music video for From the Cradle to Enslave, as well as a few live performances. And here we got the Cradle of Filth movie, Cradle of Fear. I would generously refer to this as like a C-grade horror movie. Entertaining, interesting to watch, kind of funny in places. Definitely not the highest budget or anything, but it was still pretty cool. Arch Enemy, it got the Offspring music video collection, which is great. And this is in the wrong spot, but this is the Batman collection of movies. So let's actually see if I can get you out of here. These are pretty tightly packed in. No, let's forget about it for now. So this has the original 1989 Batman, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and Batman and Robin. I also have the original 1989 Batman here. Legend of Zelda Havoc in Hyrule has a few episodes from the animated series. And something that I'm not super proud of, but I found it funny back at the, the time it came out, and this is Happy Tree Friends. I've got volumes 1, 2, well this is 2 and 3, and the volume 1 over here, as well as their holiday special. It's a horrible show, and it's just, has like cartoony characters that you would see in like kid shows, but horrible things happen to them. It's like gory and violent, and Yeah, I haven't watched these in years and years. I'm actually considering getting rid of them, but there you go. And then I have the original Lord of the Rings extended trilogy on Blu-ray. So down here, just a few more things. I got a couple of Dimmu Borgir DVDs, which comes with, this one here comes with actual live music CDs as well. On this shelf I also have my Alien figures, or some of them at least from my childhood, as well as my Alien Queen pop vinyl. And then I've got the Friday the 13th remake, the Saw movies. I actually really like them. I know people don't like, you know, the violence and stuff like that in them, but I just really genuinely enjoyed the story. The continuity was also pretty surprising throughout most of the series, and even if you don't like the later ones, if you haven't watched the first one yet, you really should. It's the least like gory and violent of all of them, but it's just a really interesting and great movie, so I do recommend at least the first one. Then I've got Alien vs. Predator 1 and 2, my Alien Anthology Blu-rays, and then I've got some Red vs. Blue. So a little while ago I made a video talking about like review scores and stuff like that in video games and gaming and stuff like that. And I really felt bad because Rooster Teeth really shelled out for Bethesda, and I lost a lot of respect for them. But they did make some great stuff back in the day. So what I have here is Red vs. Blue Seasons 1 all the way up through Season 10. I also have the Blu-ray of Halo Forward Unto Dawn, which is a live action, which is actually really cool. Then I also have The Guild, which I really love this series. Now, the only thing that I really is kind of a pet peeve is the numbering system. So the first one actually had Season 1 and 2. We're both in there, so it says 2 DVDs, and then you have Season 3, 4, and then Season 5. So it always looks like there's something missing, because there's 5 seasons and only 4 DVDs, so it just, at a glance, it always looks like there's something missing, and that bothers me. I also have Rooster Teeth shorts 1 and 2. These came with some of the DVDs for Red vs. Blue. They were bundled in. And then, of course, you gotta have Firefly. Love Firefly. And then the movie Serenity. So up here, I've got, well, actually, let's do this part first. Move the Queen out of the way. So Buffy and Angel. When I was going through high school, I loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Seasons 1, 2, and 3, I think, are still fun to watch now. After Season 3, I really stopped liking the show, so I never bought any of the seasons after that. Now, Angel kind of was... It felt like it had what Buffy was missing after Season 3. It had the blend of like the you know, the seriousness, the drama, but it had a lot of, you know, humor in it as well, which was missing from a few seasons of Buffy. I think like Season 4 and 5 are really kind of over dramatic, and I didn't really enjoy them. But I got those ones there. I also have Seasons 4 and 5 of Angel. They're still sealed. I haven't gotten to watching them yet, but I got these from HMV, which was a record store chain that went bankrupt. So it says 2 for $20, but I actually think I paid $5 each for them, so I paid like $11 in total. Up here, I've got Spider-Man 2 on Blu-ray, X-Men First Class, that was one of the other ones, and The Predators. So the Predators, X-Men First Class, and those 4 Blu-rays that I showed down there were the ones that I got. So that's for my free Blu-ray player. But yeah, so I got Spider-Man 2, X-Men First Class, Watchmen, which I enjoyed. I've got Futurama Collection. This is the one that has the episode with Gary Gygax, which is why I bought this set. The Spawn animated series, which was great, except they never finished it, so it's really hard to go back and watch those last episodes because it just kind of makes you mad all over again. Then I've got the Avengers, Avengers Age of Ultron, the original Iron Man, and then Deadpool. So I loved Deadpool. Deadpool was awesome. Kind of burnt out on a lot of the Marvel stuff nowadays, but Deadpool was great. Guardians of the Galaxy I've got down here. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was amazing. And then I've got Predator, Predator 2, and Predators. So let me just get back up to my feet here. Oh. Alright, so the top shelf, I'll just start over here. Mr. Robot is a show that my fiance watches and loves. I've also got some DVDs up here, the Pokemon movies, a couple of them that our daughter really likes. And, of course, Person of Interest, a show that I just keep going back and rewatching because it's just so great. So I got Season 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm missing Season 5. I can't seem to find that anywhere. But up here I've got my collection of wrestling DVDs. Before I get to these though, let's go up a little bit further. Because I've got more wrestling DVDs. I got a ton of these things. Like I said, a huge wrestling fan, so it just makes sense that I would buy a bunch of DVDs. So these are all kind of box sets. So we got like the Monday Night Raw 15th anniversary, top 100 moments in Monday Night Raw, which I think has Raw 1000 on there as well, the entire broadcast. DX, couple of DX DVDs, the ladder match collection, which was pretty cool, both of those. Eric Bischoff documentary. The documentaries are my favorite ones, so that's pretty much all I buy now, aside from something else I'll show you here in a moment. Top 50 incidents in wrestling. Ultimate Warrior, this was sort of the apology video DVD that they made. Whoops, going up too high here, so there's the Ultimate Warrior one. Always Believe. Brock Lesnar, not a huge fan of Lesnar anymore. He just seems so lazy now, wrestling. He just does like the same two moves over and over and over again. But I did buy this DVD because I like the backstories of a lot of these guys. The U.S. Championship, Legacy of the U.S. Championship. Monday Night War, Volume 1. This is awesome. This is a series of like hour-long documentaries on different aspects of the Monday Night War. This is pretty amazing. I got the CM Punk DVD. I was hoping that it would make me like CM Punk more. But I still don't. I don't like CM Punk. I think he's kind of a jerk and kind of an idiot. So, you know, I'm sorry. I never really got fully behind the guy. And I got the best of In Your House. In Your House was awesome. I loved In Your House when I was a kid. It was, you know, kind of a cheesy concept to begin with, but some of the best matches ever happened at In Your House. And they've got some ones that I was really glad to include. Like the fully loaded match with The Undertaker and Stone Cold teaming up against Kane and Mankind, where the Stone Cold and The Undertaker win the tag titles and Undertaker leaves with both belts, which was just awesome. Some great stuff in there. Now, behind all this, actually before I get to behind that, because it's going to involve moving stuff around, I also have the complete anthologies of SummerSlam. So this one actually was made to look like a cooler. You got like a little painted on handle on the side. You open it up, you can kind of see what looks like ice in there, and the 4 volumes. Behind that I also have the Royal Rumble anthology. So this was the first 20 Royal Rumbles, and the first 21 WrestleManias actually are in here. It has 4 things like this with DVDs in it, but the lid actually has WrestleMania 21. Now, just see if I can get some of this out of the way, because there's more. Alright, so, whoops, we have one of my daughter's video games. Move that out of the way. So, what I've got up here, these are, a lot of these are pay-per-views. There's a couple of documentary ones in here as well. The Attitude Era Volume 2 and 3. I don't have Volume 1. Volume 3 is great because it's all unreleased videos, like unreleased matches you never would have seen before. So some of these are like house shows or pay-per-view dark matches. It's really cool. I have a Survivor Series 5-disc set. This is, I think, Volume 2 that came out. I wanted this because it had the match of The Undertaker and Mankind, which I never actually got to see until that one came up. From the Vaults, Shawn Michaels DVD. This is the Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, and Survivor Series 2015 I got because it was the 25th anniversary of The Undertaker's debut. A couple of Armageddons and stuff like that there. Now, down here, just to nearly finish off the video, so I've got the first 21 WrestleManias here. I have all the WrestleManias to date. Now, I had WrestleMania 20 and 21 at the time that this the big box set came out. So I got doubles of those. 23 and 24 both came out in this like steel book, or steel case, or tin case, whatever you want to call it. 25 came with a, it was pretty cool, it came with a little preview of the WWE Encyclopedia. And then, of course, this is also the 25th WrestleMania. This is the one that had, in my opinion, the greatest match in all of WrestleMania history, with The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. WrestleManias all the way up to WrestleMania 2017. And this is what I hate. I hate that they did this. So, WrestleMania 30 was the last one to be officially numbered at the event. However, the next year when they released WrestleMania, which just had the play button as their icon, they still numbered it as 31, which I thought was awesome. But then 2016 and 2017 just had the years, which kind of sucks. I also have, this was Undertaker keychain. I had this from 1998 until earlier this year. So this thing lasted me almost 20 years. Unfortunately, it broke off at the top, but I still keep it because it's the Undertaker. Speaking of which, I've got some Undertaker DVDs here. Deadliest Matches, Tombstone, which has like a history of matches. He Buries Him Alive, which was an old VHS actually, from like 94, 95, and The Streak. I also have a collector's card that came with one of my WWE books. And then we got the Twisted Disturbed Life of Kane, a Shawn Michaels collector card. We'll just move my Gorilla Alien and my other Gorilla Alien out of the way. And just some more stuff here, some Stone Cold. You know, this one here, The Bottom Line, on the most popular superstar of all time. Awesome documentary. Scott Hall, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels. Wasn't a fan of Shawn Michaels back in the day, but when he came back, I thought he was great. I think he had his best years after he returned in 2002. Paul Heyman. This, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman, is amazing. It's an awesome documentary. I'm glad that I have the Paul Heyman, Eric Bischoff, and Vince McMahon one. Road is Jericho. I haven't actually watched this since I bought it, so I don't really know. I think it's just him in a car talking about some matches and then showing the matches. A couple of Sting DVDs. Triple H, Randy Orton, Edge, the Daniel Bryan one, which was kind of a shame to see because we know what happened after WrestleMania 30. Then we got the Rise and Fall of WCW, which is a great one. Greatest Stars of the 90s, Greatest Stars of the 21st Century. History of the WWE Championship and Intercontinental Championship. The Best of King of the Ring, which is great. This has the Kurt Angle, Shane McMahon street fight, so you gotta watch that. And then just up top here, I've got Metalocalypse, animated series, seasons 1, 2, and 3. I have the NWO DVD, as well as the True Story of the Royal Rumble, which is great. I've got the Rock DVD, Best Matches of 2016, Best Matches of 2015, Breaking the Code. This is a documentary for Chris Jericho, Mankind, Have a Nice Day, and the True Story of WrestleMania, and The Rock, if I didn't say those already. So those are most of my DVDs. I have a few Dungeons & Dragons related ones as well, so I'm actually going to pull those. They're on a different shelf. So I'm just going to pull those off, and I'll show them off in a separate segment here. So I'll go get those, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I'm back. Now, there's more than just Dungeons & Dragons, so I've got sort of like my fantasy or gaming related DVDs. The port table got scratched, that sucks. So I just want to show them off here and talk about them a little bit, because these are the ones that I think are the most pertinent to my channel, where I'm, you know, a gaming channel about like fantasy role-playing and stuff like that. So, the first one that I have, and I want to show off, is The Gamers. So this is like a very low budget. I think it was like a college student film. Put on by Dead Gentleman Productions. But this is awesome. This is a really, really great movie. You know, kind of interesting. It shows, you know, both the players at the table as well as their characters. Some great in-jokes, stuff like that. What's kind of funny is if you look here, you see this book has like paper over it that's taped. They couldn't show the covers of any of the books, I guess, for copyright purposes. So they actually had to cover them all over, which looks kind of silly, and it's almost distracting. I got to be honest when I'm looking at it. But when they've got the open books, you can kind of see some things that you're like, oh, I recognize that from some of the books that I have. But it's just interesting to see them have that covered over. But this was a really cool movie. Now, it's also shouldn't be confused with a movie simply called Gamers. This one is not so great. It's higher production. It's basically about this gaming group that are trying to break a record for the most time spent gaming. There's got some funny moments in there. There's some interesting stuff. But it's kind of hard to watch. I mean, it's silly, it's crude, it's lowbrow. So yeah, and it doesn't really make gamers look good. I will say that it really plays to the stereotypes. But there you go. Now another one that's actually pretty awful, but I ended up buying it anyway, Dork of the Rings. I hadn't seen this before I bought it. It's a spoof movie on the Lord of the Rings, and it's bad. It's really bad. I mean, it's one of those things that's so bad that it's you can sit down with friends and watch it and just be in awe of how like terrible and ridiculous it is. But I don't know. I don't think I'd recommend it unless you can get it for like $1. Another thing that I have here actually is Dragon's World, a fantasy made real. So this is a mockumentary that was aired on Discovery Channel and Animal Planet. And it's really cool because it basically, it's well done. It's a very well done, fake documentary. But it basically, it runs off the assumption that dragons are actually real. And it follows this scientist or this curator at a museum, or a scientist that works at a museum, I should say, as he goes and uncovers proof that dragons are real, and it kind of goes through like physically explaining how they would do some of the things like breathe fire and flight and stuff like that. So it's actually really cool. If you haven't seen this yet, I highly recommend it. Just don't watch it with young children that will think it's actually real, because it would be confusing. But that's that. The last thing I have here is a documentary called Uber Goober. So this is a documentary on the history of tabletop gaming. And so it starts with the wargaming, goes to tabletop role-playing and to LARPing. LARPing's not really my thing, but if people like it, then that's their deal. But it's interesting to see, the different people talking about the gaming and stuff like that. And it's a bit of a shame because there are some individuals in the movie that, because they play like Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games, they don't feel comfortable showing their faces. So you got some people that are silhouetted, which is really kind of unfortunate. I think, if this was made now, because this was 13 years old. I think if this came out now, I don't necessarily believe there would be as much of an issue with it because, gaming, Dungeons and Dragons, other kind of, nerdy or geeky stuff that people used to try to do more or less in secret back in the day is a lot more socially acceptable. So it'd be interesting to see sort of an update on that. But this has a lot of really great stuff. There is an interview with Gary Gygax in there as well. And he does a tour of D&D history. I think he goes around to different locations that were relevant to him when they were creating like TSR. So it's pretty cool. All right, down to the last few things here. So one of my favorite video game franchises of modern times, is Dragon Age. Dragon Age Origins is still probably my favorite console RPG that I have. So what I've got here are a couple of Dragon Age DVDs, starting with Dragon Age Redemption. So this was a web series starring Felicia Day as an elf, which is really cool. And this is actually a pretty cool series. I mean, it wasn't very high budget, but they still made it work. And it's a really good story. It's really interesting. So I really enjoy this. If you have the opportunity to see this, you should at least give it a watch, because this takes place, I guess, during Dragon Age 2 as far as the story goes. So there we go. There's that. And then I've got Dragon Age Dawn of the Seeker. So this is sort of a prequel thing that happens before Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition. So this was a CG movie, fully animated, and it features Cassandra Pendergast as the main character. So she's the Seeker that interrogates Varric in Dragon Age 2, and she's also one of the playable characters in Dragon Age Inquisition. This is actually a really cool movie as well. Again, it kind of goes and shows a bit more of like the dark fantasy thing that you would see with like the Chantry and some of the issues that they have with mages and things like that. So that's really cool and well done movie. All right, last but not least are my Dungeons and Dragons specific DVDs. First one I want to show here is Scourge of Worlds. Now I don't know if many people actually know about this one. This came out back in 2002 is when it was created, I think, and then released in 2003. But this is actually, it's really cool. Now the CG doesn't really hold up today, but keep in mind this was done 15 years ago when it was done, and it was never really meant to be like this huge like blockbuster AAA type of thing. But this is an interactive DVD, and what that means is there are points in the story that you actually have to make choices. And the choices that you make can lead to like a bunch of different outcomes. You can watch this thing like 5 or 6 times and not repeat any of the same choices, which is really cool. I mean, there'll be some of them, maybe the early ones that you'd have to duplicate, but there's tons of different possibilities. So it's really cool to watch this. One thing is that you know, a lot of the scenes are duplicated, so the choices will take you to certain scenes. Different options can still lead to the same scene, so if you're trying to get, like, there's 4 different endings. If you're trying to watch them all, I would definitely recommend taking breaks in between, you know, of a few days at least, so you're not watching the same things over and over and over again. It would get a little bit tedious, but the concept is really cool. I really liked it, and I wish they would do more of these, actually. Even if it's not CG, even if they went with, like, you know, traditional like cartoon animated, it would still be great. But I would love to see another animated interactive DVD, because I think that'd be really cool. Alright, then I've got the Dragonlance adventure. This is the Dragons of Twilight, Dragons of Autumn Twilight. This was the first series, story in the, I think it's the War of the Lance, or this Dragonlance Chronicles, Dragonlance Chronicles series. I have the books, I haven't read them yet, but this is actually, it's pretty cool. The animation's not the greatest. It does have an interesting cast, though, because it's got Kiefer Sutherland, Lucy Lawless, Michael Rosenbaum in it, so it's got some pretty big names. The animation really reminds me sort of like a Saturday morning cartoon from like the late 80s, early 90s, so it's not the greatest there. It doesn't hold up super well, but it is still, you know, a cool story, and it's still interesting to watch. And I really wish they would have been able to make the other 2, because I think the plan was initially to release all 3 of them, but this one just didn't do well. It didn't review well, again, because, like I said, you know, kind of rough animation. Again, if you can just kind of see here, it looks very like 90s Saturday morning cartoon. The CG in it kind of mixes in with a few things, and it just doesn't go super well. They also went for a PG rating instead of, you know, going for a higher one. So you don't, like, the fight scenes just don't look that great. They're not the best, but this is still pretty cool. I'm glad that I have it, and you know, I'd recommend it if you're a Dragonlance fan and you haven't picked this up yet. You can probably get it for, I'd say, a decent price nowadays. Now, the only Dungeons & Dragons movie that I have in my collection. So I had the first one on VHS. It was given to me by my aunt. And I guess while I'm here, if you guys are watching this far into it, I had a concept of doing a video where I kind of discuss how I would redo the first Dungeons & Dragons movie. And I'm wondering if you guys would be interested in kind of my theories or my ideas on what they could have done to improve that movie. So let me know if you're interested in that. But the first one was pretty critically panned, and for good reason. It was pretty bad. This one here, I really wish they would have been able to do a high-budget movie for this, because the story of Wrath of the Dragon God and the way that the movie plays out feels a lot more like a D&D campaign. It's got some interesting characters. Nim, the rogue, is awesome. I love him. He's just got like the perfect rogue attitude. The way that he's introduced in the movie is just perfect. Lux the Barbarian is great. Sir Barrick is, you know, your traditional fighter. He's great. Ameline is like the Elven Wizard. She doesn't do a whole lot in the movie, but she's still a good character. And then, of course, you got your cleric, whose name I feel really bad, but it just slips my mind right now. But this movie is actually pretty cool. The special effects are rough because this was a straight-to-DVD product. It didn't really have a lot of budget behind it. But it's still really cool. If you watch the special features, you know, it's obvious that the director much more closely wanted to have this match the feel of Dungeons & Dragons. So you actually see, like, in the special features, they have, like, the players' handbooks and DMGs and stuff like that actually on set, and they'll go over it with the actors, so they kind of get a feel for the characters, which is cool. There's also an interview with Gary Gygax, where he actually has some pretty good things to say about this movie. And some not so great things to say about the first one, although he only kind of, I think, briefly mentions it if he does at all. And then the last thing I've got here is my Dungeons & Dragons complete animated series from the 80s. So this is the special collector's edition that first came out. They released just a regular DVD for it afterwards. which just had like one case, you know, this size with the DVDs crammed in. But this is the complete animated series. This is the one that I bought. This is really cool. I'll show this off in a second, but it's got like the episode guide. So it goes over all the episodes, special features, and we'll just have a quick look at the inside. So here we got, this was the original promotional poster for back in 1983. So this thing is as old as I am. And, you know, it's got Tiamat, Venger, the characters, and this looks really cool. The show itself is pretty good, except for, I will say, the first few episodes, which were done by a different producer or showrunner or whatever you want to call it. The first few episodes were really rough. You know, it's hard to watch like disc 1, but it does pick up, and there's actually some really cool episodes that take place later on in the show, and it also comes with the animated series handbook. So what this is it actually has an adventure in here. It also has all the characters, so you got Hank the Ranger with their unique magic items. So you got the energy bow, the Griffin shield for Eric the Cavalier, the javelin staff for Diana the Acrobat, the Hat of Many Spells by Presto the Magician. Let's see. Hat of Many Things can act as a Rod of Wonder and can be activated as a standard action, so that's kind of cool. It has some other effects as well. I don't want to really read them all. You've got Sheila the Thief's Cloak of Invisibility, which always failed her when she needed it the most in the show. Bobby the Barbarian, his Thunder Club. And it even has my least favorite character of all time, Uni, the really annoying unicorn. But it has an adventure. Now, this is for D&D 3.5, as you can kind of tell by the cover design. This actually leads into one of the episodes, which is really cool because it ends with the fight that you see at the beginning of the animated series episode. Now, this adventure is really basic. It does, you know, require that you have a monster manual because it doesn't have any stats for the monsters in here. It just has which monsters that you use. But that's still fine. One of these days I'd actually like to run this. I think it'd be kind of neat to run the adventure. So there we go, and it ends with a battle with a frost giant, I believe. Or at least it should. Yeah, so it's got the frost giant, and this leads into the episode The Dragon's Graveyard. So this is what the events that take place immediately before that. But what's also cool is that it has Venger. So it has his stats, and looking at his stats, you know, challenge rating at 21, there is no way that these kids who were like, well, 7th level characters I guess isn't too bad, but there's still no way that these kids would have been able to actually defeat Venger or even really thwart him. He should have been able to just immediately destroy them. I mean, he's got spells like, what do we have here, Polar Ray, Limited Wish, Chain Lightning. He can cast Horde Wilting as a spell-like ability. So, I mean, he should just destroy those kids in a realistic D&D setting. And it's got the Shadow Demon. So that's that. So that is my DVD collection. Those are all the DVDs that I have, that I own. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll try to have the next one out a lot sooner. There was a huge gap between this and the CDs. But again, you know, I thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and let me know what you think about trying to like retell the story of the first D&D movie if you'd be interested in seeing a video like that. So anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.